do want to add something interesting though, that from the perspective of the reporter, because I think for us and for me as a reporter, the biggest kind of like moment in this case was obviously we were getting frustrated by the fact that there wasn't anything new. No, the investigations just kind of were running on month where they were just kind of leaking over month to month with the same thing, and no action was kind of happening. So me and my Telemundo colleague Jose Gaspar, who's also a veteran reporter in Bakersfield, and then with the help of our political reporter, actually, we kind of united forces. Maddie Gannon, who is actually still in Bakersfield, for many months, the assignment that I was working on was tracking Jacqueline and Trezell West, because I don't know if, for those who were following the case, we did not know where they were at.
Yeah, they disappeared.
As a reporter, we constantly were, visiting the home of Wanda West's home. Nobody would appear. If somebody would come out, they would shut the door on us.
And Wanda West, Christian, is for the audience, is Trezell's mother, right?
Correct. Yes. Okay. So she still, from what we know, she still lives in Bakersfield, and we would try to visit the home to, just ask, like, do you know where they're at? We just want to talk to them. Like, it's, they haven't given a press conference in so many months. And that's what we just wanted. So then one day we kind of just, we went to visit back the apartments that they initially lived in. And we started, hearing a lot of stories from the neighbors. They would tell us kind of like the last time that they saw them. And in working, when I joined forces with my colleague Jose Gaspar, my former colleagues Jose Gaspar and Maddie Gannon, we tracked down a new address for Trezell and Jacqueline West at a P.O. box in a post office in Edison, California, which was actually a couple of miles east of Bakersfield. So we, it was sheer happenstance that one day we kind of just went to check out the P.O. box. We went to go check out the post office, and we walk in, and we're taking video of the P.O. box. We're asking, the clerk, obviously he can't give us any information because it's personal information that he can't really divulge. But as I'm recording video of the P.O. box, just for my records and for any future story that we get, a man walks into the post office in a hood, sunglasses, and with a mask.
Trezell.
And he looks at us looking at the P.O. box, and as soon as he acknowledges that it's the P.O. box that belongs to Trezell and Jacqueline West, he turns around and walks out the door. And then I look over to my colleague Jose Gaspar, and I'm a little shocked, because it's like, why would that person have that reaction? And we start questioning, is it Trezell West? So we immediately, walk out, and we start questioning this man who clearly sounds like Trezell West, but is giving us a different name. And he was walking towards the Winnebago, which later on turned out that they were living in that Winnebago that we actually found.
They got arrested in that Winnebago. They got arrested in it.
Right. So we questioned him. We kind of gave up. We thought it wasn't him. But then it turns out that later on, a trucker that was in the mini market next to the post office overheard us talking to the clerk about the case, and that we think that it was Trezell. And he followed the Winnebago onto the highway and took a picture of it, and then was posted to like one of the Facebook groups, like one of the community groups in Bakersfield. And then this whole thing just kind of started. So then we went back to the station, and it started to blow up. And that same evening was when the charges were filed for them. So it was a little weird for us, because we were just kind of questioning, and I never was able to find out if the police departments were just sort of looking to track Trezell and Jacqueline West for so many months. And then when we finally did find them, they started searching for them, because then the Winnebago was found in the western part of Bakersfield, like a couple of miles west of Bakersfield, like in the outskirts. So that was like the biggest shock for me in following this whole case, and kind of just how a little bit of that investigative journalism kind of led to that. You could say it led to kind of like that arrest as well. We like to say that that's probably what it led to. It
happened a short time after that, because I followed that whole thing. I looked at it, looked back at it, and I said, holy shit, these guys saw Trezell in the post office, and I think it was very shortly thereafter. But Melanie, you could tell Christian, stay tuned to the trial because you may hear about it in the trial.
Right, sure. I think we're going to hear a lot about it. So maybe it was you. Maybe you're the one who found them. Maybe I got to think they had eyes on these people. What do you guys think? You think they had eyes on them, or like
Bill, they're living out of a Winnebago and they're on the road. The FBI is involved in this case.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just at this point. You don't have rinky-dink California City PD. And I'm sorry. I mean, I don't like to say that about, but when now after listening and hearing all of the stuff that I heard today in court, they leave a lot to be desired, because if you have police officers and if you have a small amount of them, at least have a tightened up ship. Bill, what's your thoughts on them trailing Trezell and Jacqueline West prior to their arrest?
I mean, absolutely. They should have had them, under surveillance, because, they're suspects in the disappearance of a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Right.
And they really had no explanation at all. I thought it was curious in the trial where the defense attorney said, they're only being charged because they have 2 lost children. I'm not saying it verbatim, but I thought that was a weird statement. They're being charged. Yeah, if you have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old and they're missing, there's a serious problem there. They're either dead or you're an incompetent parent. And, so all of these things, I don't look, we watched the Alec Murdaugh case, right? And we kept telling the audience how circumstantial evidence is very, very powerful evidence when it's piled up high. And the same thing is going to be true with the Brian Kohberger case. Circumstantial evidence is very, very powerful, but they have to collect that circumstantial evidence in a competent manner so they don't, destroy the police. And the officer on the stand today wasn't giving a lot of confidence to the police side. However, as we said, circumstantial evidence. Look, remember when Trezell West, right after the 2 boys were missing, he took the van out and was doing a pseudo search for about 10 minutes for them. Do you remember that?
13 minutes.
That was so ridiculous.
Yeah,
like
very short period of time.
Right. That's a circumstantial thing. That was a joke. The chalk, all the things that we're going to find out there, and they're lying about. And then the defense attorney talking about the dirty diaper. What she was implying was that, did you test it for DNA? Could that have been one of the boys? I read it right away. That's what she was trying to lead to. Yeah. No, because we usually don't test dirty diapers for DNA because they were reported to us missing, but it's sort of, I could see where she was going with it.
Right. I want to go to the 911 call because on day one, which they didn't play on here, and obviously we can't play that 911 call, but I did hear it and I took some notes from it. This is Trezell West when he called 911 to report his 2 boys missing from the backyard. And this is word for word. I wrote it down. 911 operator says, "Can I help you?" And he says, I'm wondering, this is his exact words. I wrote it down in parentheses. "I'm wondering, ma'am, did anybody call and say they found some black children, little black boys?" What? This is what he said to the 911 operator. And she said, "Excuse me?" Like words to that effect. And she was like, are you calling to report your children missing? Like, who calls? And there was no excitement. There was no urgency. He was calm, cool, and collective. If my kids, 3 and 4 years old, were missing from my yard, and I brought this up, my son Frankie is 26 years old and my oldest is 30. But when my little son Frankie was a little boy, we brought him to Shea Stadium. It was still Shea Stadium at the time. And my wife said it was with Little League. They had this little parade and they were behind home plate. My wife said, I got to bleep myself. If you lose Frankie at the stadium, don't you take your eye off of him. He was behind home plate, and David Wright, he went to go get an autograph with David Wright, and I lost him for like 3 seconds, 4 seconds. And I was in sheer panic. Mm-hmm. Like I actually felt I was going to pass out because I could just see my wife saying, "You lost Frankie." But I'm just saying, this guy is calling 911 to report his kids missing from the backyard. And he says, "I'm wondering, anybody call that said they found some little black boys? What? What's your thoughts on that, Melanie?
Anybody who's a parent knows the sheer sense of panic when you're in a department store and your kid is right next to you, and then all of a sudden your kid is gone. And I mean, it is a major sense of panic. You can't even describe it to somebody who doesn't have little kids, because it's the scariest thing. They can disappear in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then he stands outside and waits for the police to come for 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Instead of going out and looking for his kids. And the mother, Jacqueline, never left the house at all.
She came out in the towards the end when the police were called to meet the squad car out front. Because I remember with my own eyes viewing that video from one of the neighbors' house across the way.
They have like Ring doorbell footage or something.
Right. This was footage from the house on the side that shot through the side. So it wasn't the Ring. It was like more IP camera stuff. We haven't heard about this yet, I don't think. But she came out to the squad car and then went right back into the house. But the officer, the responding officers, there was 2 of them, but Officer Hansen and Cabrera's, I think it is Cabrera's. But Hansen said that Jacqueline West was more concerned with the people harassing them day 2 than finding the boys. And he stated that in court. And the father said that the boys were in the backyard on the patio, not on the dirt, not in the dirt. He specifically said not in the dirt because there's no footprints of them in the dirt. So this perp is a thinking perp. And he said specifically, I want to keep them close. I want to keep them close.